Welcome to the GFY Podcast, a podcast by healthcare professionals for healthcare professionals providing insight on how to navigate your career so that you can go fix yourself. The GFY Podcast is hosted by Mike Bruno, a chiropractor and athletic trainer, and me, Michael Stant, an athletic trainer and certified strength conditioning specialist. Although we are healthcare providers, we are not your healthcare provider. We will discuss general health interventions in this podcast, but you should not take that as health advice that works in every situation. Before doing anything on your own or making any lifestyle changes, please consult with your own physician. This podcast and views from this podcast are separate from our full-time jobs and our own opinions. If you're enjoying the GFY podcast, please leave us a review on your listening platform and or subscribe to our podcast at YouTube. Links to our show can be found in the show notes on any platform that you're listening to. So today we got Matt joining us on the pod. Matt, if you want to go ahead, give us a little bit about your background, where you're at, people you work with, anything you want to discuss.
Okay, just a quick snippet. Just been doing this for majority of my life. I just turned 60 in the fall. Started my personal training business in New York City in 1993, and it's just evolved. My wife and I eventually moved to the Jersey Shore. We took over a fledgling business, turned it around, sold it, and then started what we're doing today is small group personal training with the adult population 40 to 65, although we do have several clients in the 70 plus age range, and we focus on strength first. So our base of our programming is the big lifts, and conservative with our population, but that's where we stay, and I'm kind of happy that the pendulum's shifted a little bit to this quality of training, where it's much more research on strength training and the benefits of it for all populations, but especially for the population that we focus on. So and that's what we do. We keep it simple, progressive, conservative in a way.
I love it. Matt, when I've been talking to Mikey through the episodes, I've referenced you multiple times, so it's a full circle moment to actually have you on the podcast. I'm really excited.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mikey, the coolest thing is like going into his gym and seeing all of these people who, like, in the average population, you see them like at ShopRite or whatever, walking around the grocery store. Like it's like the normal, like retiree, grandma, whoever wouldn't even think about picking up a 10-pound weight. Meanwhile, you get in the doors of the lift and you see them like trap bar deadlifting and doing all this really cool stuff that like the normal population would be like, I'm so scared. But these people love it. They're so into it. They're so invested, really invested in their health and like putting in the time and the hard work. And it's awesome to see in that population that's like 50 plus. I really love it.
Yeah,
it's fun to see it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So, if you want to talk about it a little bit more, Matt, what is the name of your
gym?
The Lift Gym?
It's the Lift Gym in Point Pleasant Beach, New Jersey.
So we were kind of talking about it before, if we want to dive right into it. I know you and Bruno were talking a little bit about bilateral deficit training, unilateral deficit training, and kind of what is it, first off, and then how do you implement that with your own clients, and like how you kind of mix that in.
So my understanding of bilateral deficit is during a bilateral movement, say a squat or a deadlift, your force production is less than if you're to do unilateral of that same lift, the sum of the unilateral. So that would say something like this: if you can squat 200 pounds, you will likely be able to squat, single leg squat, and there probably have to be some type of support mechanism on that pendant leg. You would likely be able to squat 120, 225, whatever. If it was 200-pound squat, it would be maybe 125 in each leg, something like that. So it'd be some percentage above what you could, the sum of both limbs compared to bilateral movement. There would be an increase.
So like left leg plus right leg equals more than both of them.
It would equal, let's just say, arbitrarily 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Instead of a bilateral 200-pound squat. Right.
Gotcha. And from a from a like programming standpoint, when you're programming like bilateral movements versus unilateral movements, how do you use that principle and concept through your programming?
Well, it changes because, you know, when someone's first introduced to a unilateral movement, and we introduced that into our program almost exclusively just to check the deficits and to see how outstanding those deficits might be, and then just try to improve that, bring symmetry a little bit closer, you know, output in each side closer. But we don't necessarily measure that necessarily. We just pick up weights that someone can handle, stabilize fairly well, and ask them to move it, whether it's a single leg deadlift or some type of squat movement. We only program and measure the bilateral stuff.
So what do you generally see? So let's say all right, someone can goblet squat a 75-pound dumbbell, but maybe they can only single leg squat a 20-pound dumbbell. Like, is that something that you typically see where the single leg is so far off that like they're
Yeah.
not close? So then in that scenario, would you say, hey, you're not ready for the bilateral movement? Or okay.
No, I wouldn't say that. What I think though, I mean, the majority of our clients too, they're already having a stability issue.
Yeah.
It's, you know, strength training for them is already an unfamiliar practice, and then asking them to do something loaded, and even unloaded, just body weight. Many times the stability becomes the quality that interferes with progress or anything. So I look at too, like when we're doing unilateral work, we do things like the kickstand. Like Mike knows that, you know, you throw the pendant leg back there a little bit, just, and you try to explain keeping as little load off that pendant side as possible, and focusing on the fixed foot on the ground. But there's at some level, how much of that percentage is taken by that back foot that's just hanging out there, just trying to maintain balance or stability. So that's where this stuff gets skewed.
Yeah, Matt, I remember we were talking about that last week with like when you see people doing single leg RDLs and their hips are flying all over the place and they're looking super wobbly. I I prefer to make an exercise like to your point to be either like we're looking for strength or we're chasing balance. It's hard to chase both at the same time. So even just that light, like that toe on the ground, like I think about like the record player when the thing just like lightly taps down, like
Right.
that's how much pressure you need. It's not a lot. Sometimes I even have someone put like a finger on the wall or a finger on the squat rack or whatever it is to give them some inherent sense of stability. And that provides so much more room to up the weight, which they otherwise wouldn't have been able to do trying to also coordinate balance. Do you see the
Exactly.
same thing?
Yeah, because they're focusing on, I don't have the stability, I don't have the balance. They're focusing on that instead of, you know, getting to the meat and potatoes of the exercise, what we're trying to really
Right.
accomplish there.
Yeah.
But that's a great practice too, just
Mhm.
for them to be aware. It, you know,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so it automatically locks in that awareness. And I think it's healthy for them to understand, hey, there is a deficit on each side, and is that something that's going to pose an issue, a risk down the road? Yeah,
Mhm.
I think so. So, you know, that's why we do it. But yeah, those little adjustments, like you said, just slight tap here or just a slight hold there, and just squaring them up when they're doing these like an RDL, single leg or single leg RDL. Yeah, those are definitely useful. But then, you know, the practice of unilateral work, especially lower body, I don't think it's you're going to go very far with it if you're just introducing it for short blocks, you know.
Yeah.
So you know, I always ask, why are we doing it, and then can we make some improvements here?
Yeah.
And then going back, it at least it does this. It takes some of that load off the spine. I like that.
Mhm.
I like the awareness of there's deficits, both for the coach and the client.
Mhm.
And then when we go back to a normal block where we're doing bilateral work, normally they'll see this. They're either concerned that they're going to lose strength that they built through that last several blocks.
Mhm.
Um, that's usually an issue. And then what we see is they come back as strong or stronger. So even just that change, that phase of where we're just doing unilateral work, it has output influence on the bilateral stuff. That I always know it's going to happen, but they see it for themselves. So that's a plus.
That's pretty cool. So like it's from the rehab perspective, I always tell people we have to break it down into its component parts. So if the goal is to tying it back to this, right? If the goal is to squat, like bilateral squat and like move that weight up, can we work on single leg stuff for a period of time that will positively translate to the big squat, we'll call it, right?
Right.
So I see a lot of the times where people have, for me, when they're coming in with pain and stuff, it's more of a range of motion deficit. So it's hard for them to express the strength that they already have. It's not like one quad super strong and one super weak and there's like atrophy or anything like that, but they have a hard time showing that, like showing equal strength right versus left. So in like your world where you're comparing, let's say right and left, and they can do 40 on one side and 20 on the other, what is your favorite strategy in closing that gap?
Um, more time on that, more time on that deficit.
So
So it
spending
would either
time
be pauses, isometrics on whatever range that you can find. Saying that if it's a squat, single leg squat,
Mhm.
I like just getting in like a split squat and just leaving that back leg or back foot slightly, just as much kiss to the ground as you need just to hold stability, but then finding that low range where that forward knee is, or the forward knee is just maybe at, you're at
Right.
90 degrees and you're just floating there, just suspended in isometric for 10 seconds and then drive it back up to stand and just do slow eccentrics, slow holding isometrics, fire.
Yeah, like just getting like familiar with that movement and getting familiar in that position.
Yeah.
There's something I forget who said it. Do you know who the higher up wellness Michael Smoke? You ever hear of him? Something that he says that might have stolen from Hormozy, I'm not sure, but he's like, there's no replacement for doing the thing. So like if you have a bilateral deficit in a single leg squat, you can do your rehab exercises, you can do all this stuff, but there's no replacement for like actually just like getting into the motion and doing the thing. Like there's
Right.
no substitute for that.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
even say with kind of those isometrics and eccentrics you talk about, some people don't even know what it's like to work that. Like if they have the deficit, they don't. That quad doesn't know what it's like to actually work in that scenario. Like it's never actually been tested, and you could think about, from a nervous system standpoint, it's like, oh, I actually have to fire and work very hard
Yeah.
from this standpoint. I've never done that before. I think I'm sure in your population, like right, you said the 40-65. I'm assuming you kind of see that often, especially if it's people who never really had done too much prior.
Right. So you look at what I always like to say in coaching a client. I know what I'm going to see when we're in a situation like that. We're doing like slow eccentrics, hold the isometrics, and I know there's going to be a shake at the bottom. You're going to see quick fatigue, and you see that wobbling. That foot is just back, side to side. That knee is going blah, 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 just kind of side to side. So you see that instability. You don't see it on the right side. So we test or the more dominant side. You don't see that so much, but I just try to explain. Fatigue is setting in. There's a conditioning issue with the tissue, with the musculature. That's why you're seeing that. When you're holding those isometrics, and a good thing for us to see is we continue doing this, for several weeks, and you see much less of that. If anything, sometimes it stops. So they'll know, like, yeah, it's my less, or the leg with the deficit is assuming um a strength increase for sure. So just by seeing that, the observation, by that, that shaking your
Yeah.
head, I'm going away.
Mikey's the research nerd here. Mikey,
Yeah.
with the like strength gains, do you know off the top of your head when I'll very, like guesstimate here, but it's like from the first X amount of weeks is like more like neurological adaptations, and then after a
Yeah,
certain point,
it's
then it turns into like physical.
yeah, so like true,
Procedural,
true,
right?
true hypertrophy, like growth of muscle takes at least 6 weeks. So like everything in the beginning is very nervous system based, from a strength gain standpoint. So
Yeah.
in the first couple weeks, it's legit, you're able to fire the motor units within the muscle more effectively. Is typically what happens. And then as you keep going, it becomes more of a hypertrophy gain. It's like why when you have like the 13-year-old, it's more pronounced in like younger kids. They can you go, all right, we're gonna do a dumbbell bench, and it's like they do 10-pound dumbbells, and it's like they can't do it. And then like 2 weeks later, they're at like 25 pounds. It's
Right.
because all
Different.
that, like, right, they didn't gain that much muscle in that time. They just
Yeah.
practiced a motor pattern and got better at moving weight.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
especially in the rehab setting, like that's my favorite. I always say chase the shake. So when someone's shaking like a leaf, I know that we've locked into some sort of deficit and we can make dramatic improvements with that way faster so that I can take that person and then like toss them back to Matt and he can do his job way more efficiently and at a much higher level when that like baseline has been caught up to, because then they can really like actually start chasing like the true strength there without having to worry about pain or discomfort. It's such a good recipe, but
Yeah.
going back and forth.
And a reminder that this stuff takes time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I remember the
yeah.
days not too long ago where everyone was in a mad rush, whether
P
it's a
P
weight.
ninety P90X insanity. What's another one?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Muscle confusion.
Yeah.
Um,
Muscle confusion.
I never bought into that.
that's
Muscle's
what.
not confused about it. It does what it does. It's never
Yeah.
confused.
Well, so I'll even go off of that because in the rehab world, or I'm sure you see it, it's like you'll follow on social media. It's like they're just doing whatever crazy it like. Oh, we're gonna do a different exercise. We're gonna keep doing different exercises. But my thought's always been like, how do you see progress if you're gonna change
Mhm.
the exercises so much, right? So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Matt. Because like some people be like, oh, why are you doing the same thing over and over? I'm like, because how am I gonna know if I'm getting better?
Yeah. That is a Mike knows this better than anyone.
Yeah.
We have a program, two programs in our gym. One is it's a large group, so you can imagine what it is.
Mhm.
There's some high intensity stuff in there. There is strength component, hypertrophy components, and we slide the schedule so you're getting qualities. So if you're not consistent with like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever many days you're going to train, if it's 3 days, 4 days, um, at some point you're going to get the qualities in that large group program. But the one issue that I've always had it's a thorn in my side is that population, and nothing against them. This is not a judgment thing, but they just want to get their butts kicked, and they want fresh all the time. Fresh.
Yeah.
Oh, we did this last week. No, we didn't do this last week. Similar, but different.
I,
But they look at as much, and so they just want that. They want that change up all the time, and so when once in a while I'm coaching a large group, I explain to people, listen, guys, you want to, just what you said, you want to see progression here. If you're not, and if you're not trying to push progression by doing the same patterns week after week, then you're probably not getting results that you think you're getting. And then you see those types of gyms, those types of models, like the high intensity interval trainings. I'm going to give you what my idea is. I think you tap out about 10 weeks. Anything you've assumed, any kind of response, results you assumed, that's it. That's about it. You might lose some weight, but that's a nutrition issue. That's not a workout issue. So you might change your nutrition and find like, yes, you're getting more tone, you're getting tighter or whatever, you're leaner. But I see it all the time in my gym, and I try to manage it. They're picking up the same stuff every week, same weights. There's no progressions. No one's paying attention to measuring, and we're not going to do that with a group like that. There's just too. Most people don't really want that. They really don't care about the measurement. They don't care what the loads are. They just want to go in there and get wiped out and then call it a day.
Yeah, I actually went to is a FMS talk. I got FMS certified a while ago, and you can whatever qualms some people have with FMS and whatnot, but the guy gave it was really good, and he was like, yeah, I talk to people that like, oh, if you just want to feel you got beat up, I got some yard work to do. Like you want to go, you want to get some yard work done. So
Yeah,
it's like breaking it down like that, I think helps because yeah, you do just find those people. They're just like junkies on like, oh, I want to feel beat up, and that's what I'm looking for from every workout. And it's funny because one, for kind of what you said, you get tapped out 10 weeks, like as in a sense that you did so much high intensity work that like your body will just be you get less motivated to do it. You just feel like you can't keep doing it. Like
right.
that type of work, you can only I don't know. Like I always said like once a week, maybe if you want to do like a 60-minute workout like that. And even then I'd rather just add like a little 5 to 7 minute thing at the end of my workouts 2 or 3 times a week.
Right.
That's typically what I do because I know I can't do that.
I'm in the same agreement
Yeah.
as you. And
Yeah.
then a lot of this stuff is like it ends up being, even though you're gassed during a training session, it's an aerobic workout. Even though
Yeah.
you're gassed and you're smoked, but you're hanging in I don't know, zone 3,
Yeah.
just kind of hanging up there and just you're not getting better.
Yeah, I talk about that as dying in the middle. Like right, you die in the middle when you hang out at zone 3 for the majority of your workouts.
Yeah, and so not very little bit's intense. It
Yeah.
feels intense,
Yeah.
what they
Yeah.
say, data and feelings are
Data and
a
feeling
little bit more important. They're two different
Tell me what
things.
the numbers say. Yeah, you can't lie on a spreadsheet, like numbers are the numbers.
Yeah, that's why I love strength training. Like,
Oh yeah.
and we can look at so many different things. So if we're looking at progressive strength training and whatever list we're doing, and we see progress, and then at some point there becomes there's a halt in progress. We can ask questions all the time. We could ask how's your sleep, how's your nutrition, how's your daily stress,
Mm.
all those things, whatever boxes we want to check. If sleep's good, if nutrition's on point and we're taking their word for their word,
Yeah.
then we can always say something like, maybe it's a frequency issue. Maybe you're not, maybe your recovery is a little bit less than we think it is, or you want it to be, and you got to take that in consideration. So looking at a calendar, we could say something like this, like, okay, you train Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Well, if everything, we're looking at these inputs, your sleep's good, your nutrition's good, you feel like you're managing your stress, your daily stress, then there's not too much more we could look at. Maybe we just tapped out, squeezed as much juice out of the lemon as possible. Or we could also say, hey, let's back off on your training frequency and see what happens. And usually when we do that, we see some improvements right away. But you can't do that. We have the luxury to measure that in that program, in that strength training program. You can't measure that, and no one wants to be measured that or even told that in large group high intensity interval training. They don't. That's not an issue for. They don't care if they're recovering.
And even then, you're also going at it. Oh, you actually have to do less, and that's a mind fuck for some people. Like
less more results. I'll sign
Yeah.
up for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you look at like the Mike Mentzer high intensity protocol. I mean, it works.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day too.
But you have to be mentally prepared for that. That's to do it properly. It's no joke. You've got to want to go to a dark place, and it's not for the faint of heart.
Matt, give Mikey and the listeners like the quick spiel on that type of training, just so they can get an idea of like what the other end of the extreme looks like.
So the way I don't do it anymore. I just don't do it anymore. But when I did it for years, and I vowed I will never turn on this because this is just too effective. But what it essentially is, it's a split. Normally, it's a three different training sessions, and I'll give you an example of one. One might be chest, triceps, abs, something silly like that.
Mhm.
You would use a DeLorme idea where you're looking at your 75%, 1 rep max, so which about your 10 rep max, and your first set. So say we're doing dumbbell incline bench presses, and your 10 rep max is 100 pounds. Your first set is 50% of that. Your warm up, you're doing 50% of that, so it's 50 pounds. You hit it for 10. 75% of your 10 rep max, You hit it for 5 reps, 75-pound dumbbells, and then you grab your hundreds and you get as many reps as you can until like absolute fail. So sometimes not even just concentric, as long as you can control it, eccentric as well. So it'd be a good idea to have a spotter. And you do that, and if you get 12 reps or more, then you increase the load. That's all it is. But it would be something like that. It would be a press. You go to a single joint movement, like a fly right after you go to momentary muscular fatigue on an incline double dumbbell press. You do your flies right away. You go to close to fail on that, and then I don't know. You could pick a third exercise if you needed to. It might be a push up. It might be a pec deck. I don't know. And you call it a day. So if you looked at that from the start to the end, you probably put 5 minutes of intense training in, and that's it. And then you do your other stuff. You might do your tricep work. It's minimal. It's a minimal approach, but the approach is you go to fail, or what we that are described in science, they'll say momentary muscular fatigue. But you have to understand what that means. It's got to be, it's literal. It's not like I didn't have another rep in me, so I stopped. You do that rep, you attempt it. So it's always based on if you get, the requisite is if you get 12 reps or more, you move up in load. And it's pretty consistent for a long period of time. It gets tough when you do the lower body stuff, because that's just brutal. It just wipes you out. Even though it's short and sweet, it's just, so it's hard to get there. But then the beauty of it is this. So you do that, say it's a Monday, you're not training again, because you have to take into consideration not the muscle group, but the hit that the central nervous system just took. So you're taking Tuesday off, you're taking Wednesday off, Thursday you feel like, okay, my next workout's, it's squat centric, so I think I'm ready to do it. But then you decide, if you have a smart training partner, he'll say, yeah, let's do it one more day. Let's do it on Friday. And you do your lower body work on Friday. And then the same thing, you take a day off. So within three training sessions, 3 different, splits that cover your whole body eventually, you probably take 11 to 12 days to get it all done.
Yeah, I feel like I used to do something similar to that, to be perfectly honest, it's funny you brought the lower body thing, because I for sure always brought upper body to fatigue on last set, like momentary. Like it'd be the point where it'd be like, all right, I can't go up. I would actually drop a dumbbell.
Yeah.
And like, dude, I don't do it anymore, because for exactly what you said, it's just like you are beat up after it. And so now I'm like, I do other stuff now where I just want to feel good most of the time. But yeah, no, it's funny is that it really is. You need to kind of, if for the people that truly want to see, it can be very simple sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And it is just going to fatigue and seeing how many more reps you do each time.
Right. I think bring on intense soreness too.
Yeah.
Some people more than others. So yeah, that's the deal. Hey, there's one thing that's interesting to me. I know you got to go, Mike, and this is your show, guys. And thanks again for having me. I was thinking, this kind of goes into saying, kind of segues into training women. And I find this all the time. I wonder if you guys have any experience with this. So let's say, for instance, and I'll use Kathy, my wife. Mike knows her. We train together. She'll do a working set with whatever load. Let's just say it's 100 pounds. And I'm spotting her, and she gets 5 reps, whatever it is. And then, so say that's her 85%, 1 rep max. When we plug that number in, so we plug that, that 100-pound bench press, she did it for 6 reps, we plug it in a formula, and then we find what her 70% would be for 12 rep max, or even her 75%, one rep max. And we put that weight on the bar, say, the next training block. So we start with lesser intensity, 70% of her, and we ask her to do as many reps as she can with her 70%, 1 rep max. I've seen stuff like 18 reps, 23, if it's lower body, 23 reps, where guys normally it's pretty on point, where they're 70% for that weight, whatever their 70% is, they're getting about that 12 rep max if you ask them to give an all out effort. So why is that women in these sub maxes, when you were asking them to work with something like 70% based on a 1 rep max, that they can just fly with those reps?
They're tougher than us. That's as simple as that.
I see. As I say, that's exactly why. They just
power.
No, I don't. So the 1 repetition max, they don't have it specific to gender or sex, do they? Right? Like I can't. I'm trying to remember. It's not. There is research say that women are actually more efficient from a muscular standpoint. I don't know if it matters too. So go down a rabbit hole. I've seen it. So there's also this research has been really bad for actually researching women and strength training in general. And so like there's just less research. Why is it that from what you see anecdotally, why can they do more reps? I have no clue. I'll be honest. I don't know. It's funny because I have seen it sometimes. It does kind of change how you would probably program, right? Like if you're going off % 1 rep maxes because you're going for certain reps. No, I don't. Bro, what have you seen? You seen anything?
To your point, like women are. I have one client right now who's like, her husband will look at her in the gym and be like, "You're a beast," like because he's like, he doesn't expect her to be able to move that much weight. So like possibly it could be like partially like a perception thing, but at the same time with like the numbers don't lie, right? So you're able to do X amount of 75%, then X amount of 85, and your 1 repetition max, and all those fun numbers. Like them being so much more efficient at it is, it's a big question mark in my head too. It's like, why can they do that? Like, I'm not sure.
I would say determining 1 repetition max just isn't as accurate for women as it is for men. That would be my guess. My guess would be that equation, or if you're to actually say I'm gonna 1 repetition maxer, would that actually correlate better with the numbers? That is the only thing that's really going on in my head right now.
Yeah, I'm not
paper.
Sure. Yeah. I think this should be a part 2. We should pick up part 2 and really run with this. This is good because we're all.
I mean, to be honest, part 2 would just be, I would just focus on the research in female strength training, because it is something it's been researched a little bit, but it's not as prevalent as males.
Yeah,
let's do it, guys. All right.
I know Greg Contreras is talking because he works mostly with women, and I remember reading something that he said the same thing. That it's weird to find when the submax, their numbers just go through the roof.
Interesting.
And it's probably at that 75%. That's like the threshold. That's where you start seeing these. Wow, how do you just bang out all those reps?
Yeah. All right, we're signed up for part 2.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, guys. It was a pleasure. Thanks so much. Fun.
Our little catchphrase is at the end we go fix yourself. So give me your best. Go fix yourself. We'll sign us off.
You see it?
Yeah, just as loud as.
Ladies and gentlemen, go fix